Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Issei. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei was the Tyrant Red Dragon? Part 4. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. A moment has to pass before Asia can process what's going on right now. She looks and sees Irina's face directly in front of her, and their lips are connected. Upon realizing, Asia's face turns red and she even feels something go into her mouth. Issei is the only person I've done this with, but Irina, she's doing it so similarly. But maybe, that's because she's learned from him. She thinks as she simply enjoys herself as her own eyes turn to slits like Irina's. The two then hold hands as they let their tongues dance together. After what feels like minutes, the two separate their faces with their tongues sticking out as a delicate string of saliva barely keeps them connected. Blushing, Irina apologizes. Asia, forgive me for that. I had to show you my appreciation for being so kind to me despite my fortune. Confused, Asia wonders, what do you mean? I'm just as fortuitous as you. Irina holds her friend. Asia, I'm sorry that I before you. A tear falls down her face as she turns her head. Asia shakes her head. No, I'm happy for you. Returning her feelings a bit as Asia puts her hands on her friend's face. Because I love you, Issei and Zenobia. We're family and I'm the happiest I've been in my life. Showing a bit of perverseness, she lowers her hand and gently fondles Irina's breast and simply says, so I think I should show it to you. Brazenly, Asia pushes her lips to Irina and the former exorcist submits a bit as she falls on her back, and the two just lovingly hold each other as two of Issei's wives, best of friends, and as lovers. Irina then reaches for something near the end of the bed and puts her hand into a secret compartment and pulls out an object while Asia looks with a slight smile. Alice. Issei and Zenobia, after some rough naughty fun time, make their way to the nursery to be, a room being constructed with various toys and fun playthings for the children. The room is indicated by a picture of a baby dragon on the door. Upon arriving at the door, Zenobia lightly touches the door with a smile on her face. Before opening the door, Riaz appears before the two through a magic circle, as she politely states, the toys that were decided on have been placed in the room according to recommendations from Asia. Happy, Zenobia replies, that sounds good. Thank you. She then looks at Issei and adds, let's see what it looks like. And he nods with a smile as well. Riaz bows as she takes her leave. The two open the doors to the room and what they see is a wonderland in one room. Toys scattered through the room like a giant toy chest. Padded floors and safety locks placed all over to prevent accidents. A small pool for relaxation, beds with comfortable sheets, and tons of stuffed animals are all over the room with inviting smiles. In awe, Issei comments, wow, Riaz sure knows how to buy toys. It's like some kind of amusement park in here. Blushing and smiling, Zenobia walks up to a toy, picks it up, and gazes at it. I hope they like these things. Approaching, Issei replies, yeah, it's like Wonderland without the crazy crap. I'm sure the kids will love it. Seeing Zenobia look at the toy with such intrigue, he approaches closer asking, is that a toy that you liked as a kid? Putting his hand to her shoulder as he then puts his arm around her. Responding swiftly, Zenobia looks a bit unsure. No, I never had a need for such things. Confused, he further asks with a troubled look, don't tell me your parents made you practice with a sword instead of playing with toys. Hearing that word, parents, makes Zenobia reflect as she looks above and answers, I'm an orphan. Apologetic, Issei adds, oh, sorry about that. I didn't realize it. No, it's okay, Issei. The fact that I had no real family before my exile made it vastly easier to adjust to my new life here. She explains as she leans in closer. However, she looks at him and then wonders, but now that I think about it, why did you take me in, Issei? I understand Irina, because she's your childhood friend. But I was essentially a stranger, and you could have let me die that day. No, by all justification, you should have let me stay dead. Man, I thought the emo thing ended with Irina. But she's got some hang-ups too. He thinks and then he simply smiles and tells her, I did it because I thought you deserved another shot. I mean, I got one out of the blue, so why not you? He then holds her from behind, causing her blush a bit more lovingly as she smiles warmly from his embrace. Mansion. 3 women dressed in armor wander around the manor with one holding a map. Is this even the right place? One asks annoyed. Another one adds, it has to be. There was a stray devil guarding the halls. The first one retorts, but it was weak and small. Surely a powerful dragon would have better security. But the other reminds her, yeah, but the red dragon emperor ripped Kakabiel's wings off and he has a dragon god with him, so I think he can afford lighter guards. The one holding the map looks at the piece of paper in front of her and states, I think we're close to the bedroom. The 3 approach the door and look at it with intrigue as the door is slightly opened. They are about to enter when they hear a voice inside. Wait, that place is a very embarrassed tone echoes through the doorway. Don't worry, I've already put lotion on it, so it shouldn't hurt. Another, more calm voice, says. Moments later, the three enter the room, and all three of them instantly blush and blood gushes from their noses as they witness two women, Asia and Irina, in a very intimate moment, with Asia thrusting her hips and Irina moaning from pleasure, with the two of them having their eyes closed. The three are speechless as they just continue to watch with their jaws dropped, and it goes on until both Irina and Asia stop as Asia falls on top of Irina's back and the two take a moment to catch their breath. Moments later, Irina opens her eyes, looks up, and her face turns a whole new kind of red as she sees the three are stunned beyond reason. Alice. Still in the toy room with Zenobia, Issei hears another person enter the room. He looks over and spots Akeno, still in uniform, as she has a plain smile as she bows sorry for the interruption, but you have a guest waiting for you. Slapping his head, Issei remembers oh yeah, Auden said he wanted to drop by today. He looks to his wife you mind? She nods go do what you need to, Issei. I'll be in here if you need me. She then gives him a kiss on the cheek before he leaves. He walks with Akeno as he asks her oh, do you mind serving tea to him? I think I owe him a bit for forgetting him. Being polite, she nods of course. It'd be my pleasure, master. Blushing now, he thinks Akeno Himejima, one of the hottest girls at my old school, wearing a maid uniform, serving me, and calling me master. My life has officially become perfect. He then looks at her chest for a moment and sees that her uniform appears a little too small, but he has no complaints as he perversely looks at her. Akeno and Issei walk down the hallways as he greets the maids who bow in his presence. Slowly, he looks at them and begins remembering all their various names. Looking at his actions, Akeno thinks he's trying to memorize all their names. Most people wouldn't even bother. The two simply continue walking for the moment until they get to the meeting room and the first real meeting that's taken place here. Koka stands before office in a dark room with an orb in the center of the room. It has the look of an eye. Koka picks it up with intrigue. Is this what you've been spending time on, office? She casually asks. Nodding, office explains yes, I can't give you a new body like I did for the others, but I can give a dragon a tribute to make you stronger. Inspecting it, Koka taps it with her finger and wonders so, how do I use it? Taking it, office further adds you swallow it. But I will warn you, once you take this, it'll be like being dragged through the puts and you can't come back. Will my future children be stronger too? She finally asks as office nods then down the hatch. Koka casually remarks as she opens her mouth as she places the orb in her mouth and swallows it, while it goes down like a coin into a machine. Moments pass after Koka swallows the orb and she looks at her hands nothing yet she says, but then, a large pulsating feeling surges through her body as she falls to her knees and her eyes go blank for a moment as she feels unspeakable pain through her entire body. Convulsing on the ground now, she can't even let out a scream of pain, she can't breathe, and a symbol of a dragon appears on her back as her devil wings sprout from her back and they glow purple. Moments later, the wings are enveloped by what looks like spiraling serpents coming from the symbol as her wings change shape under the glow. Once this has passed, the glow fades and reveals new black wings that are more draconic looking, and she blinks as her eyes turn to slits for a brief moment and she struggles for a second but manages to stand back up. After this, she falls back to her knee in a cold sweat. Smiling, office comments I did figure you'd survive, but I'm surprised you are still conscious. Koka smirks back hey, I handled foreplay with a dragon, I wasn't going to let this put me out. She then looks at her hands and senses a new power within herself as her body emits a purple aura now and a black belt with chains that form around her tails with a red gem materializes on her body. Meeting room. The meeting room is comprised a single round table meant to sit at least 15 people with comfortable chairs and warm casual decor of drapes, vases, and a few plants for decorations. Opening the door, Issei sees a pair of faces, one he expected and one he didn't. He sees Auden chatting with Azazel and he glares a bit at the fallen angel. Well, that's a friendly look if I ever saw one. The Governor General casually remarks as he puts his hand to his chin. Trying to stay calm, Issei replies sorry, but I really wasn't expecting you to be here. Smirking, Auden adds come on, save the gazing for the lady parts. Caught a few glimpses waiting here from that fallen angel trio in those French outfits. Nodding, Azazel agrees yeah, but I do have some things to say first and foremost to you, Red Dragon Emperor. Curious, Issei's eyes turn skeptical as he takes a seat in this room with Auden and Azazel following suit. Now sitting, Auden first starts off serious sorry, but I wanted to bring him here because we have some things to negotiate. Now calmer, Issei looks at Akeno hey, how about that tea, Akeno? He asks politely. Akeno nods and swiftly walks over to another door that leads to a small kitchen for snacks as she begins preparations. Azazel checks out Akeno and remarks so Barakiel's daughter is one of your maids. I heard Surzich's sister was working here, but I guess I should have saw it coming. Hearing the name Barakiel makes Akeno stop for a moment as she grips her hand, but she quickly goes back to her duties. However, Issei glares at Azazel. So, what do you want? Now that's harsh, but expected. He replies to Issei's impatience, but is very serious. Okay, I wanted to start off by apologizing for my former subordinate's actions. I ordered her to observe you, but she ended up going rogue. Now Issei grips his fist, but stays calm. Yeah, and I got the business end of a spear because of that bitch. Then there was Asia. Seeing that he struck a chord, Azazel sighs. I'm sorry about, and I'm willing to offer anything within reason as compensation. But what I'm here for is a partnership. Upon the word partnership, Issei immediately thinks, damn it, I should have brought Rose with me. She's way better at this stuff, and Office has been MIA for the last couple of days. But he does his best and asks, isn't that a bit much considering what you started with? Timing in, Auden explains, look, kid, we're simple men in our desires. Hell, me and this guy have a long history of titty gazing on a serious day. But we're also leaders who need to compromise when needed. Now getting to it, Azazel comments, that's right, and we're seeing that you're causing a stir in the underworld and heaven after the Holy Sword incident and the servants under your employment. But, despite these sincere words from the two, Issei confesses, I get it, but I'm not sure I'm ready to trust the fallen angels just yet. Auden, you gave me Rose, and she's been amazing, but Azazel hasn't really given me anything yet. Auden strokes his beard with a smile. Of course, we've prepared an offering as a show of good faith. He then snaps his fingers, and 3 women appear from a portal, but they have red faces. They wear armor resembling dragons with their midriff revealed and wing accessories on their ears. Seeing them, Issei comments they don't look happy to be here. However, one replies, no, we are, Lord Red Dragon Emperor. We just saw something. The other 2 look too embarrassed to talk, but Azazel cuts the tension by explaining, these 3 are the commanders of small unit of Valkyries we've handpicked to help you for your army. Including these 3, there are a total of 40, not much, but it's a start. The Kendo re-enters the room and provides a cup of tea and a plate of snacks for the 3 bows and stands in the corner to await further orders. Sipping on his tea, Issei thinks further, a squad of armored babe. That's freaking cool, but are they just buttering me up now? Looks at Auden, but the old man hasn't steered me wrong yet, unless Rose is a spy. But I really doubt it. Seeing Issei's face, Azazel eats a snack and remarks, look, the squad is an offering of goodwill. We're not bribing you, and we're not going to ask for anything. But now it's my turn for a peace offering. This gets Issei's attention immediately as he looks at the fallen angel leader, who explains, I'm going to tell you that I came across some info on Michael's next plan to get you to open up a bit. Does the name, should you come to mind? Is that asshole going after Irina again? Man, he doesn't know when to quit. He thinks. I'll take that as a yes, and he's sending some guy with that name your way. But that's all I got for now. He finishes. After taking a large sip to finish his tea, Azazel stands. Like I said, I'm just here on good faith. So I'll take my leave right away if you want. Auden finishes his tea, stands and adds, these 3 will show you where the others are, but I better get going, since this guy doesn't have a pass to leave. The 2 older men leave the meeting room through a portal that Auden opens by pulling out a key with Office's symbol on it. Issei is now alone with the girls, and he looks at his new soldiers with a smile. So, how about you 3 show me the whole team? Thinks, actually, let's get Rose first. He requests of them. But they are still flustered as they nod to show Issei the way after they retrieve Roswis. Okeno takes her leave to tend to her duties as a maid. Entrance. Irina and Asia appear at the entrance, but their faces are both very red from their earlier encounter as they stick together to go back to their room. While they walk, Asia comments, at least the Valkyries cleared the way before we got there. Irina bashfully nods, yeah, and it's not like it was enemies who saw us. Me being I can't even say it. Taking a deep breath, Asia looks more determined. Well, we shouldn't be ashamed of ourselves. She then holds Irina's hand and reminds her, sure, it was embarrassing that somebody saw us, but I don't regret giving pleasure to someone who's important to me, just like Issei does for me and I him. Still flustered, Irina swiftly asks, but did you let him ever in that area? Swallowing some spit, Asia confesses, well, we did blindfolds once and he picked the wrong hole, so yes he did. Irina blushes again and quietly remarks, it did feel good, so I should ask him for next time. But she then looks up and wonders, but I'm wondering if things will be okay. I'm worried he's starting to become paranoid about us lately. Thinking on it, Asia adds, well, I guess he just wants to protect us from anything he can. I'd say it's his blooming fatherly instinct. Father? I wonder how mine is doing. She quietly says again as the 2 continue their walk down the hall to get some formal rest. On the way there, they pass by Kuroka, who is wearing a new outfit. It resembles her old kimono, but with a new scale pattern. She no longer has her gold obi, which is replaced by a red thin armor belt, and she wears a red collar, and her hair appears messier than before, as her headband is gone and replaced with a small simple ornate red chain. But as they pass her, Asia and Irina get a feeling as they watch her pass by, and her new aura is visible to them. As she passes by, Koka turns to her fellow wives, sticks out her tongue and proclaims, "Looks, I'm really in the club now." She then continues walking down the hall. But Asia and Irina think nothing further of it since Office is always keeping an eye out. But this long day is just ready to end for them, especially after their little venture outside and then inside. Roswis is still in the study, but she is now reading a book about the evil dragons. She reads it wondering, there has to be something in here that can help me understand better. She thinks to herself as she reads the following lines. Among evil dragons, the dragon known in Norse mythology as Nidhogger is one such dragon who's known for his greed. He devours all things in sight and it is believed nothing could slake his hunger. Known for his vindictiveness, he possessed an ability that produced miasma that corrode those touched by the clouds produced from his body. Upon reading this, Roswis drops her book and looks at her hands. Oh no, does this mean I and he if we make love? She has vision in her head of her and Issei intimately holding each other and they share a kiss, only for Issei's eyes to shoot open as the flesh around his mouth begins to rot and Roswis screams in horror as his body decays before her eyes. Her face looking panicked, she neglects to notice a different person entering the room, who picks up the book. Looking up, Roswis puts on a calmer face. "Oh, I didn't see you come in here, Koka." Indeed, Koka stands before her fellow wife and reads the book a bit. "You know, it is better if you don't worry about the stupid things." She reads the words and concludes, "Oh, you're worried about giving him your goods. Worried your little moans of pleasure are going to release a little toxic love, huh?" Flustered, Roswis takes the book away. It's not as simple as that. She then looks at Koka and notices the changes in her aura. Smirking, Koka rebukes, "Look, we're not normal people. You were a Valkyrie and now you're a dragon. I was a Nekashu, then a devil, and now I'm an artificial dragon. But I'm not focusing on the little things. I'm focused on my own personal problems. But first, I'm going to get that husband of ours to put a baby in my belly." As she turns to leave, Issei opens the door and announces, "Hey, Rose, we got something we want to show you." He then notices Koka and casually waves to her. "Hey, I like the new look, Koka." As if he doesn't notice her aura. Smiling still, Koka adds, "Hey, how about we take this body for a joyride later?" Blushing, Issei answers, "How can I refuse that kind of invite?" He and Koka then share a mutual laugh together. Standing, Roswis declares, "Issei, I want to have sexual intercourse with you this evening." Her face turning a new shade of red as she states this, and Koka even whistles with impress in her face, and Roswis just looks at Issei with an embarrassed look. Issei doesn't blush, get flustered, and doesn't even flinch when he answers, "Sure, Rose. You're one of my wives after all." After her rather blunt demand, Roswis smiles and bashfully responds, "Really?" She then walks over to his side and stands next to him, and then she notices the three Valkyries standing behind the door, who are now blushing again. "Are we working in a brothel?" one of them asks. Hearing this, Issei turns to them and replies, "Hey, there is nothing wrong with a wife asking her husband if they can do the dirty deed. I want to show Rose that I love her and maybe have a kid with her. Why not? She's amazing." His words reaching her heart even further, Roswis's eyes turn to slits and she emits a pink aura for a moment that Issei sees. The Valkyries then begin talking amongst each other a bit, but Issei ignores them as he reaches his hand out to Roswis, who cheerfully takes his hand. Butting in, Koka dashes up, presses her chest to Issei's arm, remarking, "Hey, I'm here too. Maybe I want some slow sweet loving tonight." Though his face appears serious, in his mind, Issei is quite different. "Man, I love my life. No more lonely nights, no more porn mags as often, and real tits every day." Drooling a bit, Issei then shakes his head, and the leader Valkyrie intervenes, "Sir, we'd like to introduce you to the squad." Nodding, the Red Dragon Emperor walks with the two ladies at his side so he can meet his new squad of Valkyries. He looks at a maid on the way out, asking, "Hey, you mind telling the others about the new squad show off?" The maid bows happily, "Of course, master." She then wanders off and stops along the way to inform the other servants about the squad. Issei and the others inform their friends to meet up where the Valkyries have gathered themselves. In the courtyard, a small army of female warriors wearing armor of dragons stand in a formation and wait diligently for their leader. Though some gossip, they remain waiting. Walking down with Koka, Asia, Zenobia, Irina and Roswis, Issei makes his way to the courtyard to meet the promised troops he has received from Aden. His heart pounding, he thinks to himself, "Man, and a squad of soldiers. I can't really imagine this being for peace. Oh well, I'll probably need them somewhere down the line." Looking to his side, he sees Irina and Asia give warm smiles. Zenobia simply looks forward, Koka winks at him when their eyes make contact, and Roswis has a blush on her face. Looking forward again, he walks towards the entrance to the courtyard and hears the sounds of many voices. Walking toward the light, Issei approaches a balcony and looks below and sees the many young women below. A bit nervous, he approaches the edge of the balcony and they notice him and stop talking. Looking below, Issei is speechless as these entire warriors look at him, expectantly. He doesn't say anything, thinking wow, so these are my soldiers. Man, it looks like there's a lot more than there actually is. While he stares at the Valkyries, Asia approaches from behind and whispers, I think you should say something to them. Oh yeah. I should do that. He replies nervously. He clears his throat, thinks for a moment, and then he takes a breath and the eyes of all the warriors remain on him as he calmly tells them okay, well, welcome to my home. I'm really glad to have you all here. I mean, getting my own army is really cool and I like that you all are wearing armor. Aw man, that doesn't sound right. All the eyes suddenly turn a bit disappointed. However, Zenobia approaches and gives her own little speech. Everyone, this man beside me is the person who will start the changes needed to make all factions change their ways. Devils will no longer rely on humans, fallen angel deceptions will not be tolerated, and angel cowardice will cease. What we want, what we all need, is to press on and either change them with words or force as we must. She then backs away, looks at Issei, and says sorry, I wanted to say that for a while now. All eyes on the balcony are now on Zenobia for that speech she gave, with Koka simply whistling. Now that's a declaration of war if I ever heard one. Which simply receives a glare from the more violent Zenobia Quarta, and Koka just rolls her eyes. Feeling impressed, Issei feels a fire as he takes her energy and follows. Yeah, we're not taking any shit from those beeps. Screw contracts, screw the status quo, screw spying on enemies, screw all of it. If we're doing this for everybody. If anyone has a problem with that, take it up with me. 'Cause I'm not backing down no matter what. Despite Issei's passion in his words, his audience seems more baffled as their eyes are wide open, as if to say, is he serious with just their expressions? But now, Roswa steps forward to her new allies, some looking at her with familiarity, one whispering did not ditch her. Looking proudly at Issei, she proclaims our leader may sound a bit preemptive, but he speaks the truth. In our time here, he stood up to enemies, allied himself with leaders, fought against threats, and has always been compassionate to us, his friends, family, and blushes, lovers. Koka now steps forward and adds her own words, following up on this horny Valkyrie, looks at Roswa, who blushes redder. This guy, I thought, was a hopeless pervert. The guy does more banging than a shaman and has a couple of buns cooking in a pair of ovens. Her words cause Irina to blush, and Zenobia just keeps a stoic look, no shame or embarrassment. But Koka continues, but I've found myself charmed by him. Because he faces problems earnestly, he doesn't hurt anyone that he doesn't have to, and he's strong enough to make good on promises, and I'll fight for him until the end. Irina and Asia both remain still but smile at Koka's declaration, and now the Valkyries below don't begin cheering, but the sound of faint clapping can be heard as it begins to get louder, and then all of the hands below them are moving with the armored warriors starting to converse, but Issei and his wives can't hear their words, but they smiles at seeing their new army applaud them. Issei then gathers Zenobia, Koka, and Roswa and holds all of them and mentions I can't believe how great my life is now. But then he remembers hearing about allies from Rose and enemies, then he looks at Irina, remembering Azazel's words about Michael sending someone with Hyoudou in his name, which he assumes, I guess I'll have to tell Irina sooner or later. Shakes head, but I should do it now while I have the guts to do it. He then lets go of his wives and approaches Irina, much to her wonder, and he takes a breath. Irina, how about we go for something sweet? She tilts her head with confusion, and Zenobia walks by and mentions I'm craving something sweet. Koka intervenes if they're going, I'm going. Is looks over and sees a rather casual smile on Koka's face as she mentions gotta do my duty, after all. Then Asia jumps in, hey. I'm not getting ditched. I'm going too. Finally, Roswa gets in on it, stating I'm not getting left behind either. I have to keep track of your assets after all. With everyone wanting in, Issei sighs and says okay, how about we all go get something, like maybe something cool. Being a bit blunt, Koka mentions I have an idea. And the others all look at her as she smiles. Ice shop. Everyone sits at a bar table inside a small sweet store with a simple bar-like layout with a counter girl taking orders, with Issei ordering, I guess I'll take a strawberry cream one. And the friendly lady happily writes it down on a piece of paper. He is sitting between him, Irina, and Zenobia, as he wants to be next to the former. Irina smiles and politely asks, can I please get a salted caramel flavor? And the lady nods as she writes it down. Issei waits for the dessert to arrive as after a few minutes of silence to himself, while the other ladies and Irina chats with her friends while discussing many things. Irina is smiling happily with her eyes closed. He looks at Zenobia, who also looks happy as she talks with everyone, talking casually with each other. Moments pass without him speaking anything, but he thinks it is just the same last name. That's stupid. Go to England, how many people have Japanese last names like Hyoudou? He just stares at Irina for a moment. Looking a bit worried, Irina concerning asks, darling, is there something wrong with me? Trying to laugh awkwardly, he rubs the back of his head, simply answering I thought it was just kind of strange that Kuroka suggested Kakegori of all things. Irina simply smiles at her husband. I think it's nice. We don't go out enough, especially as a family. She then moves her hands together for a brief moment, but she frowns a bit for a brief second and then smiles again. It's truly a blessing. Issei hears a slight groan as he looks to his opposite side and sees Zenobia clench her fist. But to ease the tension, the polite counter girl places bowls in front of everyone with various colors and scents. Being polite, the two former exorcists politely say thank you for this food. But the single hand in front of their bodies as they slightly look like they're praying, but they back off soon after. Irina takes a spoonful of her brownish dessert with whipped cream and caramel on top. Her face beams with delight as the frozen dessert tastes amazing. She takes more spoonfuls and before she knows it, her bowl is empty and she simply asks, can I get another? To which the counter girl simply goes to get more. Happy that Irina is enjoying her treat, but understanding he can't put this off forever, Issei simply sighs and says, Irina, I think your dad is coming to visit. Irina, who is licking her spoon, drops the spoon and her eyes go blank for a second and Zenobia also seemingly freezes in place. Letting the motion back, Irina wryly smiles and replies, darling, you shouldn't joke about that. But she looks at his genuine expression and then she shakes a bit and starts breathing rapidly, mentioning I haven't had any contact with him since I left England. I haven't told him or my mom about us or even. She rubs her stomach again and she looks like she's about to panic, but the counter girl places another bowl of the frozen treat in front of her body. Issei eats his dessert calmly and explains, yeah, well, that's what I was told anyway. I guess Michael must be getting really desperate to pull this. However, Irina sadly replies, please, Issei. Don't say that about my dad. Don't say he's trying to trick us. Comfortingly, Issei rubs Irina's shoulder, assuring, no, I don't think that about your old man. I'm sure he's not the one to distrust. I want him to be part of our family. Smiling with a tear in her eye, Irina looks at her husband as he gently wipes her face, telling her, hey now, no crying in this place. Listening in, Zenobia smiles a bit but she frowns immediately after as her aura settles down. Koka looks at Zenobia, thinking good thing I came with. I guess Office's little safety spell is working wonders. She looks at the friendly counter girl and further thinks, since that girl isn't trying to bust any of our skulls. Zenobia sits next to Asia, who has overheard Issei and Irina's little talk. She is about to say something to them but sees her friend right next to her, asking what's wrong, Zenobia. She takes a breath and bites a bit more of her purple kakegori and looks at Asia with a hint of envy in her eyes, answering, I'm fine, Asia. I'm just a little frustrated at this whole ordeal with the church. Koka steps up a bit after hearing this, saying, oh, I say it's a little more than that. Zenobia turns her head, no, I have no reason to be upset outside of that. Almost out of nowhere, Zenobia feels something wet and smooth on her face and looks to see Kuroka's tongue sliding up her face. Unable to act quickly, Zenobia nearly throws her spoon at the Nekashu. But Kuroka looks up a bit, commenting, yup, that's definitely the taste of a liar. Turning the slits, Zenobia's eyes become angry as she shouts, quit butting into my business, you intruding whore. Suddenly, everyone's eyes turn to Zenobia as she looks around with a frustrated look still on her face. She stands up, slams her hands on the counter, and storms off. Tempted to go, Issei nearly gets up, but Asia and Kuroka leave with the former saying, we'll handle this. Stay with Irina, she needs you. He then turns his attention back to Irina, who looks concerned about her friend. But he gently puts his hand on her face and she smiles at him and says, let's welcome him together. Outside the shop, Asia and Kuroka walk to see Zenobia sitting on a bench nearby, just looking towards the sky. She just stares for a moment, her eyes still looking a bit upset and she is biting her lip. She doesn't face her friend and fellow wife, but does say, I don't know what's wrong with me, Asia. Without saying anything, Asia sits down next to her and now sees Zenobia looking across the street and seeing what appears to be a couple across the road. She then thinks and says, I'm sure if you wanted to, Issei would take you on a date. I've gone on several with him. She shakes her head, just staring down the way and mentions, it isn't that. I know if I needed it, he'd give me the attention I needed. Kuroka nonchalantly comments, yeah, I think he's giving some lip service to that twin-tailed chick in there. Ignoring Kuroka's comment, Zenobia explains, I've been having these feelings. For any random reason, I just feel like hurting things. Stares at the couple, I even have a desire to hurt those two people over there that I've never even met. I want to take my sword and just attack them. The aura around Zenobia's body radiates and an image of a dragon appears around her body. Despite this, Asia just sits next to her like nothing is there. She just says, Zenobia, just please don't attack people at random. They don't have anything to do with us. She shakes her head, calmly remarking, don't worry, I won't. I don't let myself feel bad about slaying people that attack our home, but killing innocent people isn't something Issei, or me, would tolerate. But I just feel so angry about everything lately and it's getting harder to control. Koka intervenes by leaping between the two friends and sitting on the bench and smiles saying yeah, that's a side effect of your new body, girly. She looks at Asia and mentions I guess the little sister here got the lucky effect. She doesn't act like Apophis, from what I hear. But she does play on both sides of the road. Smirks, that's right, I heard about your little horizontal hustle with that other girl. Asia's face turns beet red and Zenobia looks a bit embarrassed as well, but she goes back to what Koka said, what do you mean? What kind of side effects are you talking about? She asks with concern in her tone. Looking confident, Koka just says I think you should figure it out on your own. It's more fun that way. She then turns her attention to Asia and asks how about you share some of that lily action with me? I got a feeling that Issei is going to be busy with the other one. Zenobia then produces her sword and puts it past Koka's face threateningly and she states Asia is far too precious to share a bed with you. Shrugging it off, Koka stands up and waves goodbye while commenting guess I'll go get some more sweet stuff. Have fun, you two. Leaving the two alone, Zenobia puts away her sword and Asia just smiles at her. Now blushing a bit, Zenobia asks Asia, did you have intercourse with Irina? Almost used to is, she nods with a blush while Zenobia puts her hand on hers, now sweetly asking would you? Asia just holds Zenobia's hand as the two stand up together and Zenobia smiles warmly as her friend sweetly whispers of course. Because I love you too. Sometime later, Issei is still with Irina, making out with her, and Roswis is now next to him as she looks at the number of bowls stacked in front of them, which is a ton as she says to herself, we just spent 600,534 yen on dessert. Her face drained of color at seeing the bowls and subsequent tab. Issei just has lips firmly on Irina's with their eyes closed and slightly moaning, and then pulls his face back, happily saying Rose, we got to make plans for Irina's dad to visit. Sighing, Roswis just pays the tab with a check and quietly responds okay, Issei you're the boss after all. But he then touches her hair and reminds her hey, I didn't forget about what I said I'd do. Her face lights red, but she thinks yes, finally. Before her expression turns to lustful as she begins to breath a bit heavier. But the house is waiting for the day that word will come for the visit, but this may or may not go well for the house. But they can't lose hope. Zenobia is hunched over a toilet and the loud sound of her gagging and Ria's, still a maid, watches the mother-to-be and gently rubs her back, comfortingly saying I'm sure it'll all be worth it in the end, my lady. The former exorcist has a look of disgust on her face as she continues her vomiting into the toilet while her maid watches her. However, after Zenobia has settled, breathing heavily, she stands up straight for a moment and then begins to shake briefly. My lady, why don't you go for a nap? I can prepare some food for you, if you'd like. Ria says concerning for Zenobia's well-being. I think I'll take that offer. I should be more careful since the baby inside me is getting bigger now. She says wiping her face and looking down at her stomach, which is starting to become swollen. Bedroom? What? Why do I have to do it? Rainer asks angrily as she holds a can of beer while sitting on her bed in front of her allies. Because we're in this situation because of your idiotic plan, Rainer. Middle snaps back while looking red in the face. Kalriner looks equally mad as she drinks a beer herself and throws the now empty can into a pile of empty cans. Blushing a bit yeah, so what? Why does that mean I have to be a baby factory like those sluts in his little dragon club? She argues. Kalriner opens another can and sips some, while reminding her look, it's not like it won't be without perks. That perv takes extra care of those floozies, protects them, and gives them whatever they want. Besides, he keeps getting some, so how bad could he possibly be? Hearing this, Rainer puts her finger to her chin, thinking. Meeting room. Issei is sitting in his chair getting a cup of tea from Akeno as she happily pours a cup and Roswis sits at his side with a blush on her face as she lightly places her hand on his. Boy. On, husband. I have a husband. Hahaha, take that old pervert. I have a husband. And we have I can't even think it she nervously thinks while sitting next to him. Master, I think your guests will be arriving any moment now. She politely reminds him. Man, I can't believe that it's almost time, Rose. He softly says as he swallows some saliva. Hey, Rose, make sure to say. You know. It's a bit much to say the whole truth right now. She just nods. You'll have to tell the truth eventually, Issei. But I'll help you like I always do. She adds with a smile. He nods with a look of unease, but Roswis grips his hand tighter, making him smile a bit. He then hears the sound of the door opening and he takes a deep breath. When the door is opened, Issei stands up as he sees two familiar faces. These two both gasp upon seeing him as he raises his hand. Hey, what's up? He casually says. The two step forward and approach Issei and hug him immediately. Issei, you're okay. One says, a woman. The other one, a man, sternly looks at him. Do you have any idea how terrified we were? He yells. Issei hugs the two back. I'm sorry, a lot of stuff just happened and I kinda got wrapped in a bunch of stuff. He then looks at the two in eyes, the eyes of his upset parents. Trying to break the tension, Roswa stands up. Hello, mother and father-in-law, she bashfully says. Yes, I have always wanted to say that. She nervously thinks to herself, seeing her in-laws. Looking at Roswas, the two immediately turn their attention to her with curious looks and critical intentions. So, you're the wife he talked about? Miki, Issei's mother, sternly asks. To which Roswas merely nods and Goru, Issei's father, approaches near her as well. I'm so sorry that we didn't tell you both. But Issei was in danger and had to flee the town for a while. But I promise that I've cared and loved him, and he me. Roswas explains, nervous as she does. But the two worried parents simply embrace the long-haired woman and just sit down to catch up. Outside the room, Koka enviously looks on at her husband's interactions with Roswas. Lucky little bitch. She says while grinding her teeth. I wanted to get freaky in front of the in-laws. She mutters further, but then she feels a hand on her shoulder. Hey, we've got somewhere to be. A stern-sounding voice says as Koka turns to see Sona Citri standing behind her. What are you doing here? She asks, but then a mischievous smile forms. Oh, has Issei been slipping his? She tries to say, but Sona puts her finger to Koka's lips. Don't finish that question. I am not romantically involved with the Tyrant Red Dragon. She immediately replies. Is that what they call him these days? Koka asks back, but Sona ignores her. Adjusting her glasses, Sona explains, I thought he'd tell you. I am here to serve as a mediator for a meeting with Diodora Astaroth, and you along with Asia are to serve as the attendants while I discuss terms with him. Rubbing the back of her head, Koka groans, man, why do we have to meet with that degenerate? I don't know, Diodora requested the meeting, so we will find out then. She replies. Within moments, Asia arrives wearing her battle attire and a look of uncertainty. I'm ready whenever you both are, she meekly says. Then, they walk without many words as Koka shrugs with a sigh. Bath. Issei sits in the bath, a large pool of warm water with steam. He sits next to Irina, who is washing his back for him. He sighs, man, Rose was really into the whole meeting my parents thing. Curious, she asks, darling, why did you ask Roswas? Wouldn't it make sense to bring me or Zenobia? He looks at Irina's slightly swollen stomach and rubs it. Yeah, but I think we'll have to move into the big stuff later. Besides, Rose really wanted to do it. Nervous, Irina holds her stomach and looks down. I just wish my dad visited before I began showing. I don't know what to say to him. He'll be here any day now. Besides, I'm sure this little guy or gal doesn't want you to feel gloomy. He gently pats her stomach, which makes her smile again. Yeah, you're right. I just hope that he accepts our child. She remarks, thinking on what he might think. Sona, Asia and Koka appear in a meeting room inside of Kuo Academy and see a young man sitting at a table with two female attendants of his own. Before sitting, Sona politely greets him. I apologize for being tardy. I hope you can forgive my imprudence, Diodora Astaroth. The young man, Diodora Astaroth, looks over at Asia and has a polite smile on his face. Think nothing of it. If it meant that I could see Asia again, it's worth waiting to me. Confused, Asia asks, do I know you? Upon hearing the question, Diodora stands and exposes his chest to Asia, revealing a large scar, and then she remembers. You're the devil from that time, she says in her newfound surprise. He nods and then the meeting begins for them. So why did you call this meeting anyway? Surely you didn't call upon the Red Dragon Emperor to gaze at one of his wives. Sona asks as Diodora's gaze turns sour for a brief moment. Oh, I didn't realize that Asia was already married. That's too bad for me, I guess. He responds as a polite smile comes back to his eyes. But then, he has a rather annoyed look because I was hearing rumors that the Tyrant Red Dragon was married to Lady Leviathan. Sona smirks. I won't allow shallow remarks to irk me. I had assumed you called this meeting for something important, but it looks like you're wasting my time. She stands up. Come on, we're leaving. Saying this to Koka and Asia. But Koka has an intrigued look as she looks at Diodora. And what if she was? She asks. Sona's eyes turn annoyed at Koka's question. No, that's not possible. Their relationship is professional, nothing more. Asia even looks a little worried. Yes, it wouldn't matter too much. She quietly says. Snickering, Koka remarks, I caught a glimpse of Issei swapping spit with a girl with long black hair, untied might I add. They were in bed, naked, so I couldn't tell. I only wish I joined in on that. Then, all eyes are on Koka. Diodora looks at Koka with disdain. Sorry, but I didn't ask for the opinion of lowly criminal. Asia and Sona look at Diodora with similar disgust, but Koka just approaches him, leans in, and whispers, "I wouldn't talk about that crap if I were you, Mr. Nun fetish." Then, one of Diodora's attendants pulls out a sword, but Asia approaches with amazing speed and grabs her sword-carrying hand. Her eyes turn to slits while saying it isn't very nice to attack someone like this. Then, the attendant begins to cry in pain as her hand falls off her arm with her sword in it, and she looks with horror as part of her arm has resolved. Whistling, Koka looks at the normally sweet Asia, commenting, "Wow, I didn't think you had it in you." Taking a breath, Asia states, "No matter what, I'll protect my family. Just like Issei promised to protect me." Diodora just grits his teeth, but then takes a breath. "My apologies, Asia. I didn't mean to offend anyone here. How about we retry this meeting at a later date?" His attendant is still screaming in pain as her cries are ignored until she is carried off by the other attendant. Sona just tells him, "If you plan on trying this again, I promise we will not accept any more of your business, Diodora. How about this? I'll host a banquet at my home in honor of the Red Dragon's alliance with the underworld," he suggests. Being courteous, Sona just replies, "I'll inform him of this, but I'll also mention the attack on Koka." With this, the three leave Diodora alone as he grips his hands into fists. Meeting room. Issei sits in his meeting room with Akeno, just like earlier, and Irina is waiting outside, nervous as she wears a red robe. He sips some tea presented by Akeno herself and takes a deep breath. "Man, today is the day." Looks at the door, Irina's heart has to be racing right now. He says with anticipation. He then hears a noise as a Valkyrie knocks. "Lord Issei, your guest has arrived. He'll be teleporting from the original manor now." "Okay, thanks for telling me," he says to her. Then, a flash of light beams in the room as a man wearing priest attire with the same hair color as Irina, and he is joined by a woman dressed as a nun. Issei recognizes the man from pictures and his resemblance to Irina. "Hello, Irina's dad." He nervously greets the priest. The man immediately shoots Issei a look of hatred. He immediately walks over to Issei, who sighs as he closes his eyes. The priest clenches his hand into a fist and punches Issei in the face, much to the shock of Akeno and the nun Slidey, who barely flinches. "Okay. I deserve that," Issei says on the ground after being punched out. "Father Tauji, you shouldn't have been so brazen," she criticizes. Akeno helps Issei up and the door flies open. Issei. Irina shouts as she sees her husband on the ground and her father holding a fist. "Dad," she says. Tauji turns to her and his eyes look beyond surprised. He simply says, "Irina." The father-daughter duo look beyond words at each other. She too scared to talk, he too shocked to say a thing. Both the nun and Akeno suggest, "How about we sit down and talk about it?" Despite this, Tauji approaches his daughter and hugs her before they sit down. Tauji sits down as Irina and Issei sit next to each other as each person gets tea. Tauji just sits with a look of determination as Irina and Issei explain the story to him. He looks angry at hearing Irina's wound by Issei's hand, happy about him taking her in, sadness at her struggles, and a mix of emotion at her being married. Until. "So, Dad. Me and Issei. Well." She takes a deep breath and then takes off her robe as her full body is revealed, and he understands in that moment. Irina looks as if she's about to cry as her father puts on a look of utter shock. "What?" he calmly says despite his shock. Tearfully, Irina confesses, "I'm having a baby soon." His shock doesn't fade despite her words. The nun shakes a little but remains vigilant. Until, Tauji lowers his head and he trembles. I see a tear falls down his face and he lets it out. "I thought you did horrible things to her. But no, it was just rumors. Just horrible rumors." He raises his head smiling. "I can't believe it. My daughter is married and I'm going to be a grandfather." Irina calms down. "Dad, you're not disgusted by me?" He shakes his head. "No. Why would I be? I came here expecting you in chains in a dungeon, or even worse. Instead, I find out you're cared for and expecting a baby. How I could not be filled with the most absolute joy in the world." Tauji takes a moment after professing his joy. But Issei wonders, I wonder what kind of rumors was he hearing? Once he's calmed down, Tauji looks at his daughter with a very happy smile. But then he looks at Issei. "Issei, I'm sorry for showing you that undeserved hatred. But I'm not sorry for hitting you. That was punishment for injuring my daughter." Issei rubs his face bashfully, showing his shame for the incident. Not wanting to contain his curiosity, Issei asks, "Hey, what are you guys saying about me? Sounds like I'm some kind of sex offender." Tauji takes a breath and confesses, "You could say that. But what I heard was this, that you are a merciless dictator with penchant for destruction. I also heard that took young women as spoils of war. That's why I thought. My daughter and Zenobia Corda were being used as your toys." Issei thinks on it. "Yeah, I guess I do have a lot of wives." But the nun asks out of curiosity, "Where is Zenobia Corda?" To which Irina answers she's taking a nap. Zenobia is also pregnant with Issei's child. But this response gets a different reaction from Tauji as his eyes go to Issei and he detects some jealousy from the priest. Young people have all the luck, he says to himself. But then, Irina gets a better look at the nun and she apologizes. I'm so sorry, Sister Griselda. I didn't recognize you at first. She looks at Issei. She's Zenobia's guardian. Former legal guardian. She replies back, a little sadly. Oh, then I can go fetch Zenobia if you'd like. Issei offers. But she shakes her head no, if she's with child, then it's best if she gets her rest. On another note, Tauji adds also, I am happy that you've taken great care of them. It must have been hard when they learned the truth of God's death. Irina's eyes widen all the way and a look of shock is now on her face. Dad. You know? She asks. Tauji nods yes, Lord Michael began telling others not too long ago. He explains but Irina's expression doesn't change and she begins hyperventilating. A boosted gear appears on her hand as her mood turns to absolute anger, with her eyes turning to slits. They cast me out. For nothing then. Then, her body emits a black aura. They ruined my life over nothing. A shadow forms around her invoking an image of an 8-headed dragon appears around the room. Issei tries to hold her. Irina, calm down. But his words fail to reach as she seems lost in her own world. Now that's an unexpected reaction. A familiar voice says as Issei looks up and sees Office gazing down from above. Office, help me out here. Issei shouts to her. But she shakes her head. I could. But that would involve me possibly killing both her and the baby, and neither of us wants that. The room begins to shake and everyone looks a bit worried. Her powers are going berserk because you just told her that Saint Michael gave her the boot for absolutely nothing. Office explains. Issei looks at Office and then Irina again as her armor begins to form around her and a green substance begins leaking from her mouth. I get it. Before, she at least thought being kicked out was for the greater good. But now she knows it for nothing. Before long, Issei, Tauji, Griselda and Akeno are all blown to the wall by Irina's power as she assumes her balance breaker form. Then, she lets out a roar and then she disappears in a black flash. Irina. Issei shouts as she fades away. He looks around the room for anything. Tauji and Griselda stand up and the former laments I didn't think she'd think like that. The Office just looks uninterested. That's the problem with emotions. They simply lead to problematic situations. But at least they look interesting. He looks up at her. Office, where did she go? To which Office shrugs to say she doesn't know. But she does ask are there any angels in Kuo? To which Tauji confesses there were some angel escorts with me besides Griselda. But they were just escorts and nothing more. Issei looks at his hand and summons his boosted gear, lamenting Irina, don't make me do something I don't want to. Please. Issei, panicking, tells Office while Akeno listens as well. Hey, I need you to tell Rose to stay away from the exit. Keep Zenobia safe and get me a team of Valkyries ready. Aren't we being demanding this evening? She responds before disappearing. Betting his composure, Tauji looks disappointed. I can't believe this happened. I thought. Tauji, why did you tell her that? You should have known. Griselda says to the priest. Taking a deep breath, Issei tells them don't leave this room until I get back. He turns around to leave, but Griselda speaks up. Sorry, but as an angel, I cannot obey that request, Issei Hyoudou. She argues, but Issei looks at her with slits in his eyes. Don't mess with me. If something happens to her, I'm not holding back anymore. He threatens them. What do you mean? Are you saying that you'd declare war with all of heaven? She asks. Damn right. I'm getting really sick of this shit. You guys keep attacking my home, threaten my family, ruin people's lives, and keep bugging me over those stupid holy swords. He complains to them remembering all the attacks on his home and all the other things that have happened. But, Issei, those swords are our means of fighting back. Without them, our chances of destroying threats are reduced and heaven will lose a lot of its power. You don't take into consideration our circumstances and assume us evil. She argues to him. However, Issei just replies that's your problems, not mine. But Irina going berserk is my problem. So I'll take care of it and I don't want to see you both outside until I'm back. The two go silent as Issei leaves the room with clear orders to all. Outside. Sona, Koka and Asia arrive at the entrance to the manor, the glyph located inside the original home. They are in shock as they see the dead bodies of a group of angels wearing white clothing. Koka and Asia both summon their equipment as Sona looks around. I wonder if another attack from heaven is happening. Asia wonders while looking around. Those chickens don't know when to quit. Koka adds and opens her palm as a dragon-like eye appears as a floating orb in her hand. The three look up and see a few angels fly into the air, dead as they float, and hear a loud roar, but Asia immediately recognizes it. That's Irina. She must be fighting. Gasp, that can't be a good sign. She assesses she equips her scale mail and flies into the air to where the fighting it. Smirking, Koka murmurs, I guess it's my turn to show my new stuff. She then glows with power as an orb of energy surrounds her body, and black armor forms around her waist, legs, arms, even her tails gain armor and make them serpent-like, and part of her chest, leaving her most of her bust revealed along with her upper arms, shoulders. And her entire head with a choker forming around her neck with a red gem, and her eyes morph to resemble dragon eyes. Once fully equipped, she checks herself out. I think I like this look. Can only imagine how our kids will turn out. She comments to herself, to Sona's annoyance. Then, she summons a pair of wings from her back that match her armor as she flies up as well to join Asia. Debating for a moment, Sona just goes back to the manor, saying it's best to report that meeting. Interfering would probably lead to trouble. As she approaches the warp, Issei appears in front of her, warping himself. Ever diligent, she immediately says, Issei, I have completed our agreed meeting. Sona, call Leviathan, we've got an emergency. He responds in his panic. Seeing the direness in his eyes, Sona sighs and nods to fulfill his request. I just hope she doesn't overreact. She thinks as she uses a circle to call her elder sister. Issei activates his armor and communicates with Drake. Hey, can you tell me if Irina is any danger? No, the power of that dragon won't be easily quelled. But she could potentially put an immense strain on her body with all that power she's expending. But her life isn't threatened by her own powers. He explains, sounding serious. Damn it, why did this have to happen? Issei shouts to himself as he flies to where the chaos is occurring. Manor. The Valkyrie soldiers are scrambling to different posts, with a few going to the exit, maids are gathering equipment for the soldiers, and the more personal staff gather around Issei's bedchamber where Zenobia is sleeping. In the meeting room, Tauji sits while a scowl from Akeno greets his gaze. Griselda stands at his side while the tension is very thick in the air. If Irina dies, it'll be your fault. Akeno angrily proclaims to the priest. Anxious, Tauji stands with a look of panic on his face, as if he's ready to charge, but Office blocks his path along with Griselda's chances. Sorry, but Issei said to stay here. The dragon god tells the nun and priest. But Griselda lightly smiles at this blockade. Outside. Issei, in his scale mail, flies around as he sees Irina fighting more angels as a neck-like appendage grow on her armor as she radiates with power, launching rays of energy from this new appendage as it opens like the maw of a beast. Stay back, she's got the power of an evil dragon. One of the angels shouts. Retreat. Our only job is to escort Father Tauji and Sister Griselda. Another states. The angels look over and see Issei flying over with Asia and Koka following him, informed of what happened. He looks at them. Asia, Koka, if things get crazier, go to the house and protect everyone else. I can't let anyone else get hurt. He says sternly to his wives, who nod. Asia, particularly looking unhappy under her armor as she looks at Irina's rampaging form. A moment later, they arrive at the scene as Issei immediately stands in front of Irina as he shouts, Irina, please stop it. But she roars and another neck-like appendage emerges from her body and opens its maw as a blast of green energy erupts from the mouth and blasts Issei back as he shoots into the distance. Issei. Both Koka and Asia shout with shock. But determined to help, they continue on. Koka, remember to not hurt Irina. Asia tells the Nekashu, who looks agitated. Easier said, that crazy dragon's going to blow us to pieces if we go too easy. She replies. Irina roars once more, but in her head. I trained day in and day out, went to church every week. I fought, killed, and risked my life happily for God. I did everything to prove my faith. Koka jumps in and tries to grab Irina's two new appendages, but is slammed heavily on the ground upon grabbing one. Asia joins in and grabs Irina from behind as she is able to hold on with Koka leaps off the ground and grabs the appendages again with Irina's body being restrained further. What did I get for everything? I was cast out at rock bottom after learning my prayers were pointless. But even then, I felt like it still had meaning. Nobody should have had to go through what I did. At least that's how I thought it, and I wasn't alone at least. Suddenly, Irina's body stops moving a bit. Not taking any chances, Koka and Asia keep their grips on their fellow wife as she is still making slight roaring noises. But then. Asia removes her helmet, yelling, Irina. It wasn't pointless. Your faith still meant something. Responding, Irina yells back, shut up. What do you know? You were cast out for an actual reason. Me and Zenobia. We were cast out of no reason. Then, two more appendages erupt from Irina's back and they have their maws open to Koka and Asia's heads, so the two loosen their grasps as powerful blasts erupt from the maws of these appendages. Barely dodging, Koka yells, hey, I don't think talking is going to get us out the oven here. Nervously, Asia thinks, oh no, if she keeps this up, she'll destroy everything around us. But as she thinks this, a large icy blue dome begins forming around them, and the temperature suddenly drops a bit as Irina fires another blast in the air, hitting the dome, and some ice falls from the top. Looking over, Serafal appears now with her hands to the ground, and a serious expression is on her normally playful and cheery face. Issei then appears at her side. Thanks, Leviathan, I really owe you for this. But then, she has a happy look on her face. Of course, I can't refuse a request from my #1 fan, and especially if it comes from Sona-chan. Nodding, he adds okay, but just try not to hurt Irina. To which the devil just nods with a serious look. Irina points all of the appendages at Serafal, who summons a series of ice walls which appear one after the other like a set of dominoes, while Irina's new armored parts charge and then fire at the walls which blast through many of them. Seeing how powerful the blasts are, Serafal moves out of the way of the blast as it utterly destroys her ice walls and blasts a large hole in the dome, causing it to crack. Looking at the hole, Issei becomes nervous. Man, not Leviathan's ice magic is tough enough. Good thing that I had the Valkyries make a barrier outside. Going to his side, Serafal adds don't worry too much. Sona-chan and her friends are helping with the barrier outside. That's good and all, but Irina's berserk right now. We can't keep her locked here forever. He replies worryingly. Moments later, Asia and Koka join the two and are waiting for a moment. Hey, hubby, got a plan cooking in that head of yours? To which he shakes his head. But Asia thinks for a moment and walks over to Issei saying silently I think I've got one, but I'm not sure it's a pleasant one. She whispers in Issei's ear. Koka leans in as well because Asia gestures to her to come over. Serafal goes ahead to keep Irina distracted while the others plan, knowing she won't wait forever. She flies as Irina fires more shots at her with her appendages, putting more and more holes in the surrounding ice dome. Serafal only puts up a circle for defense and never launches any form of attack as Irina just keeps on attacking. Back with Issei and the other two, Koka smiles mischievously. Well, I never would have thought of that. Asia, determined, reminds her just hold her for a few seconds and that should be enough. Issei, also serious, states yeah, and I'll get the rest once Asia finishes her job. Serafal maneuvers around and Irina turns her body completely while Koka dashes in at this moment as she gets a purple aura around her body, saying guess this is my boost. And she does as she did before and grabs Irina from behind, but this time she flips upside down and uses her legs to grab the appendages, holding them downward. My turn. Asia shouts as she begins to drip water from her index fingers, while Issei follows right behind without any form of power-up. Asia races towards Irina, who manages to turn around and sees that two foes are approaching while she struggles to shake Koka off. Asia gets close as she swipes at Irina's helmet from her armor, melting it off and exposing her face. She then jumps up in the air as Issei approaches while undoing the helmet of his armor. Irina's eyes are dragon-like because of her rage, but Issei charges in still without powering up and his face exposed. Irina still struggles a bit, but in a few moments, she feels something warm against her face. She then begins to relax her body for a moment and Koka lets go as she gracefully turns her body to land on her feet. Then, Irina's armor grows smaller as the appendages begin to go back into the armor. Then her arms wrap Issei's body as their bodies press together. The scene relaxes a bit as Irina's eyes go back to normal, now realizing that Issei is kissing her, while he puts his arms around her as she begins to reciprocate his affection. After some more moments of them making out, Irina and Issei's armor fade away as they revert to their normal selves, but Irina's hair is undone and her clothes damaged from her outburst as Issei puts his hands on her shoulders. Outside the barrier, Sona and her peerage float with their arms extended as the Valkyries Issei called on support them with offering their power to support a barrier surrounding the ice dome, which is cracking more. Sona remains vigilante as Saji shouts hey, Sona, I think it's calmed down now. The ice isn't cracking anymore. But she replies no, not until my sister undoes the ice or until we see the inside completely. The ice cracks more as Sona keeps her position and keeps her eyes focused on the dome, but a moment later, the ice begins breaking apart and the next scene is one that is burned into the eyes of everyone watching. All of the people watching suddenly go red and even blushes a bit with a serious look. They see Irina on top of Issei, both naked, and she moans audibly as the barrier is undone, and the people watching suddenly avert their eyes with Sona looking irritated. Below, Serafal flies shouting Sona-chan, you shouldn't be seeing this. While she flies to her sister to cover her eyes. Smirking, Koka quips I heard of slaying the beast, but this is the first I've seen laying the beast. Right before Irina lets out a loud moan that's seemingly heard from far away. After a few minutes, yes a few minutes, Irina is sleeping on top of Issei's body as he looks up at the sky man, that was a close one. He then rubs her head slightly while smiling at her calming down. Koka picks Irina up with her robe wrapped around her like a blanket while Issei dresses himself while the others gather around. The Valkyries bring the angels who fled as they lightly descend from the sky. "Sir, we found these angels flying outside the dome." One explains to the Red Dragon Emperor, who doesn't look very happy. He gives them a glare for a moment. "Red Dragon Emperor, I promise you we didn't antagonize your concubine." One speaks weakly, but Issei grabs him by the throat. Asia steps in, lowering Issei's arm, saying, "Issei, we didn't see any one of them attacking her, and Irina's armor wasn't scratched." "I think he's telling the truth." To which Issei releases his grip on the angel. "But he does order take them to the manor, and we'll figure out what to do then." Then, he looks at Irina and simply nods to Koka, who reverts to her normal form and goes back to the manor with Irina in her arms. Serapho leaves for the underworld with Sona and her peerage immediately due to their business concluding for the day. Then Issei holds Asia closer as she affectionately reverts as well and clings to him a bit. "Thanks, Asia, that plan worked," he says to her with a clear sense of gratitude. Meeting room. Issei appears with Tauji and Griselda still in the same room, sitting down, with Akeno and Office watching them as all eyes turn immediately to him as he has a very serious look on his face. "She's fine, we calmed her down," he says to relief of everyone in the room, especially Tauji. "I can't believe I caused that to happen. Irina was so upset and hurt. But I should have known better than to blurt stuff out like that," he laments. "Actually, I'd say it was her own fault she went berserk." Office says out of the blue as everyone now looks at her. "Office. It wouldn't have happened if Michael Issei tries to argue." But she interrupts. He made a logical decision based on his experiences. It was Irina's clinging to the remnants of the faith that abandoned her. If she was truly ready to go on, then she wouldn't have had that reaction. "Regardless of why it happened, we should be thankful Irina wasn't hurt." Griselda interferes with sincerity. Taking a breath, Issei nods. "Yeah, that's right." Calming down, he looks at Tauji. "I think we're all exhausted, so I'll let you both stay the night. I know you both have more stuff to get off your chest." Smiling softly, Tauji nods. "Thank you, Issei. We'll both be happy to take your offer." To which Griselda nods as well. He signals to Akeno, who bows and leaves the room. He then informs the two, "I'll make sure that dinner will be ready soon. You both can go wherever as long as you don't leave the manor." They then stand to leave and wander around, but before leaving, Griselda approaches and bows to Issei and lightly shakes his hand. "Thank you for your hospitality." But she discreetly slips a nod in his hand. He waits until they're out of the room before reading the note. It reads, "I need to talk to you in private. Please, find in 1 hour, meet me here. I will be alone." Upon reading it, he immediately takes suspicion. But for now, he exits the room. What a day. Met my parents again. "Oh shit, I'll have to take care of that too." Met Irina's dad, she freaks, and boning her. "Fix that. Now, I've got to meet up with that nun." He complains to himself as he walks out the door. End of the here. So that's it for today's video guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.